Ladies, I don't say this to scare you, but if you've been wiping the wrong way for decades, your body might be silently suffering, and you wouldn't even know it. I learned this the hard way. So today, let's talk about the 5 signs you've been wiping wrong according to doctors. And trust me, by the end, you'll be rethinking every bathroom visit you've ever made. Before we dive in, go ahead and tap that like button. Subscribe if you care about your health, and in the comments, let me know, did your mother ever actually teach you how to wipe properly? Mine sure didn't. 1. Chronic itching down there. Let me tell you something no one told me growing up. There's a right way and a wrong way to wipe. And for most of my life, I didn't know which was which. I thought itching just came with getting older. But the truth, I was making things worse every single time I went to the bathroom. You know, that persistent itch, the one that lingers even after you've just showered, or the one that flares up when you're wearing your favorite slacks. That irritation you keep blaming on just dry skin or sensitive laundry detergent. Doctors say that's often caused by bacteria and microscopic residue left behind from improper wiping. Here's what's really going on. When you wipe from back to front, especially if you're using dry, scratchy toilet paper, you're actually dragging tiny, invisible particles of fecal matter right into the most sensitive and delicate area of your body, your vulva and urethral opening. Over time, that repeated exposure causes inflammation. The skin becomes raw, inflamed, and reactive. And once the natural pH of that area is thrown off balance, it's game over. The skin begins to dry out, itch, and even crack. You might start using creams, powders, ointments, sprays, but if you don't address the root of the issue, the itching keeps coming back. And I'll say this with love, a lot of us are too embarrassed to talk about it. So we suffer in silence. We think it's just our age. But it's not. The simple act of switching to front-to-back wiping, using gentler materials like moist, unscented wipes or a bidet, and actually patting dry instead of scrubbing can make that itch vanish. I used to think I had a skin condition. Turns out I had a wiping problem. And once I fixed it, the relief was almost instant. So if you've been reaching down there and scratching more often than you'd like to admit, it's time to rethink the way you wipe. 2. Frequent urinary tract infections, UTIs. Now, this one hits home. I can't count the number of times in my 60s I ended up in the doctor's office, crossing my legs and wincing every time I had to pee. Burning, urgency, pressure, and that dreaded little test cup. Sound familiar? At one point, I even asked my doctor if I was just prone to UTIs. He looked me dead in the eye and asked, "How do you wipe?" I laughed, like I always have. And that's when he explained what no one had ever taught me, that wiping back to front can directly introduce bacteria like E. coli from your backside straight into your urethra. And in older women with thinner skin and a shorter urethra, it doesn't take much for that bacteria to sneak in and cause an infection. Add in menopause, which decreases natural estrogen and weakens the urinary tract's natural defenses. And suddenly you've got the perfect storm for repeat UTIs, all because of a simple hygiene habit that went unchecked. What's worse is how many of us feel ashamed of getting frequent infections, thinking something's wrong with us, when in reality, no one ever taught us better. Doctors now emphasize front-to-back wiping as essential for preventing infections. And not just that, they recommend wiping gently, using moist toilet tissue or water-based rinsing, and avoiding harsh soaps that can make the area even more vulnerable. After switching to a bidet and changing how I wiped, I went from having 4 UTIs in 1 year to none the next. So ladies, if you've been sitting on cranberry pills like they're candy and still struggling, it might not be your kidneys. It might just be how you wipe. 3. Hemorrhoids or rectal bleeding. Now, I'm about to say something bold, but honest, we older gals are often wiping too hard and too often down there. And no one wants to talk about what that does to the body. If you've ever seen blood on the toilet paper and just shrugged it off as normal, you're not alone. I did the same. But doctors say that consistent bleeding, irritation, or discomfort around the rectum can often be traced right back to aggressive wiping, especially with the kind of dry, rough toilet paper you get in most public bathrooms, or that two-ply stuff our husbands insist on buying. Hemorrhoids, those swollen, painful veins around the rectum, are incredibly common in older adults. And while they're often blamed on straining during bowel movements, wiping too forcefully plays a much bigger role than people realize. Here's how it happens. You wipe, it still feels not clean, so you wipe again. And again. Before you know it, you've scrubbed the area raw. That friction causes micro tears. Add in a low-fiber diet that leads to hard stools, and you've got a recipe for chronic irritation, swelling, and bleeding. I know women who bring wet paper towels into the bathroom just so they can scrub themselves clean. That's not hygiene. That's trauma to sensitive tissue. When I started switching to padding instead of wiping and used warm water rinses, I noticed an immediate difference. The discomfort faded. The bleeding stopped. And I realized how much unnecessary pain I'd been living with just because I didn't know better. Hemorrhoids aren't just part of aging. In many cases, they're a direct result of how you treat yourself after using the toilet. So if you've been wiping like you're sanding a piece of furniture, stop. Your body deserves better. For lingering odor even after a shower. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever stepped out of a fresh shower, toweled off, put on clean clothes, and still felt like something just wasn't quite right down there? A faint odor that lingers, even when you've done everything right? I used to think it was just part of getting older, that maybe our bodies just smell different with age. But doctors say something completely different. Turns out one of the most common causes of lingering odor, even after washing, is residue left behind from improper wiping. That's right. You could be scrubbing yourself squeaky clean in the shower, but if you're wiping the wrong way every day, especially back to front, you're reintroducing bacteria to areas they were never meant to be. And when those bacteria hang around the delicate vaginal or perineal area, they thrive in warm, moist environments. The result, a persistent, musty, or even sour smell that doesn't go away with soap. In fact, using strong soaps can make the problem worse by throwing off your body's natural balance. I remember buying all sorts of sprays and feminine washes, thinking I just wasn't fresh enough. But all those products did was irritate my skin and make me feel more self-conscious. It wasn't until I read a study about the importance of wiping direction and gentle hygiene practices that it clicked. I changed 3 things. I only wiped front to back. I stopped using scented products. And I used warm water or fragrance-free wipes instead of dry toilet paper. And guess what? That odor disappeared within days. I know we don't talk about this stuff at brunch with the girls, but we should, because so many women are secretly worrying that they're unclean when in reality, their bodies are trying to send them a message, change how you wipe, and everything else starts to fall into place. 5. Constant moisture or discomfort in the underwear area. Now let's talk about something subtle but incredibly common, that uncomfortable, slightly damp feeling in your underwear. You know, the one where it doesn't feel like you've leaked, but your underwear still ends up damp or even a little sticky by midday. Doctors are now warning that this constant feeling of moisture can be a silent sign of improper wiping technique, especially in senior women. Here's why. As we age, the muscles that control our bladder and bowel movements weaken. So sometimes a little bit of urine or fecal matter is released without us even noticing, just droplets. And if we're not wiping properly or thoroughly, those droplets can stay behind. Mix that with the natural warmth of the body and tight-fitting clothing. And suddenly, you've got a damp, uncomfortable environment that leads to chafing, odor, even yeast infections. This isn't just about wiping direction anymore. It's also about wiping effectiveness. Are you wiping thoroughly? Are you using a material that actually absorbs or cleans? Or are you quickly dabbing with dry paper and hoping for the best? I used to rush through it. I had arthritis in my hands and a sore back. And I figured a quick wipe was good enough. But good enough isn't always clean enough. And my underwear paid the price. Eventually, I switched to a routine that works with my body, not against it. After every toilet visit, I use a soft, damp cloth or wipe, gently patting the area clean. I make sure to fully dry the area, especially in skin folds. And I only wear breathable cotton underwear during the day. No more synthetics that trap moisture. Since then, no more dampness, no more weird discomfort, and no more changing underwear halfway through the day, just in case. If you've been feeling that constant moisture, don't ignore it. It's not just sweat or aging. It could be your body's quiet way of asking you to change how you care for it after every bathroom visit.